Welcome to Otaku Shot. What's on the liquor and anime? I'm Shane.
I'm Scott.
All right, cheers, bud.
I said my name that time instead of trying to say like a thing.
Yeah, I know it went by a lot faster, I guess.
Yeah. Shane likes it when I just say my name.
Yeah, I do. It fits it much better. Thank you, bud.
You're welcome.
All right, cool. Sweet, Scott. What are we drinking tonight?
We have Blue Moon, and we just finished a bunch of Malibu rum.
Scott's a white girl.
151 rum.
No,
Malibu.
please. Please don't do it. Okay. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Tonight we're not doing anime book club or anything, going over stuff. There's a new season. Our current kind of setup that we weren't trying to do for the podcast is we're trying to get away from just talking about anime and talk about topics that have to do with it. So I guess that doesn't make any sense. Either way, we're not talking about series anymore as a whole. We're just getting into topics that have to do with things that are not spoiler.
Yeah, like we're going to try to not talk about specific shows. I was like, we're not going to talk about anime.
We're not going to talk about anime. This is the podcast. The podcast is done. It's now just to get drunk and talk about whatever.
Although to be fair, we do ramble.
We ramble about certain things.
The ramble cast.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. So tonight's topic that we're going to be discussing is so I came across an article the other day that was on something that I kind of sparked my interest, but essentially what it is does an anime does manga need an anime to hit the West? What kind of stuff varies when it comes to anime transferring to the Western culture? How does this affect us? What anime gets more popular here than in Japan, and why is that? There's a couple other topics I want to get into eventually, but we'll work it out whenever we get there. There's a specific topic that I want to talk about that it really doesn't have anything to do with that, but I thought of it earlier today, and goddamn, I really need Scott's opinion on it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about. I've had a brief briefing.
You've had a briefing of what it is?
Yeah, of what we're talking about, but not everything. So I'm excited because I'm gonna be learning right along with you guys. So
yeah, Scott doesn't know anything about stuff I've done.
I don't know anything about anything.
Scott doesn't know anything about it. I've done my own research.
I'm a big dumb boy.
I've done my own research on things, and Scott's here to tag along and hear what I have to say and bounce off of that.
Yep, as always, just like in life, just bouncing off your ideas. And
I don't think that's true in real life, but okay. All right, well, getting down to it. So giving you kind of what my idea is I'm going to give you guys a brief history of I did a bunch of research kind of on how manga has transferred to the West and how it's gained popularity, and that's kind of where I want to start out with this is just kind of a brief history and kind of bounce off stuff with that.
Yeah, get to it, boy.
Yeah, for sure. So for my first part in manga, so obviously, around like the, I want to say, I think it was about late 60s, early 70s, manga artists started to sprout up around and were trying to get their own stuff licensed to Western cultures. Western cultures did this thing that kind of fucked over a lot of manga writers where there's X amount of money that is made per page that you produce in a manga. So essentially someone will come to you nowadays, they'll be like, oh, you make $40 a page that you produce. The reason why a lot of things didn't become popular that were manga at the time was because Americans were shitty and decided to be cool. Like they came here with this cool ideas that were like, hey, I want to produce this and possibly get it westernized. And America said, okay, cool, 50 cents per page. And then the people who are producing the manga were like, no way, that's a bullshit price. You're screwing me over.
Yeah, so pretty much they just like undercut them so that
yeah, for sure.
They didn't want to pay for the actual product.
Yeah, so there's a lot of times where it was just like it was a conflict of I'm not making enough money out of this to transfer it to the West, so why should I give it to you?
Now, did the format of manga arise from like Western comics, or did the idea kind of arise independently overseas in Japan? Of like, I mean, the concept of a paneled out like book essentially can't, like, there's no way that only would have existed if comics came around in the West.
So I'm going to get into this. So the way that manga was first introduced kind of to the West was actually Japan had produced a few mangas that were worthy enough to become a play in the Western culture. So essentially, we made a play that people at the time did not realize was from a manga. They just thought it was, oh, cool, this is a play based off a story. They don't know anything about it.
Do you happen to know what play that was?
I heard the name earlier. I don't know what it's called. There's a couple things that it's like, I don't remember the name of it. It was very long in Japanese.
Was it Hamlet?
It was not Hamlet.
Was it Romeo and Juliet?
Please don't name everything that is based off of...
Those are the only plays I know. It's cool. I'm done. Those are the only two.
Okay, cool. So kind of what happened was plays were introduced and Americans started to question what they were doing. After that, this is what I was talking about earlier that I thought you would cool. This is kind of my respect that happens more is so Stan Lee, Marvel, came to Japan and his first thing in the 70s was to be like, hey, I'm trying to sell you guys comics books that are from America. And while he was there, he happened to check out a bunch of manga. This inspired a lot of Japanese artists to create their own thing based off of Marvel Comics. So that started the first Spider-Man manga. This made manga a bit more popular because Westerners had a thing to go into when looking for manga.
Yeah, kind of like a bridge almost.
Yes.
Between the two cultures.
They're like, okay, cool. I like comic books. This is done by somebody else who like it's like most comic books. Like comic books are created based off of the content of a person, but are still created by different people. And that's kind of the thing is that they found a thing that they liked and produced it, and then it became a hit, and more people started to pay attention more to manga, at least at this time, a little bit, not really as that much. Manga didn't really start making a hit until about the 80s.
I mean, I don't even know. Over here in America, I don't think I would even call manga a hit now. Like, people still say manga. You're reading that manga?
You're very right. So
I hear that more than I hear the correct pronunciation.
So here's when it comes to I'm still going to my history. So we're still in the 60s, going to the 70s.
I thought we were in 2019. I'm sorry.
Astro Boy was one of the first ones to be ever like produced that people got popular with. I had an anime that was like kind of one of the things that the guy who created Astro Boy is considered the godfather of anime.
That makes sense.
And also, have I ever told you about like how like Astro Boy was inspired by like Scrooge McDuck?
I don't think you did ever tell me that. In what way is Astro Boy inspired by Scrooge McDuck?
So here, let me
Did Scrooge McDuck pay to have Astro Boy built? Is Astro Boy just an enhanced sex robot for Scrooge McDuck?
Scott, hang on. Let me get into just something that I want to just fuck over anime like anime goers, otakus in general that love anime, and just think about this every time you watch hentai. So
okay.
So
hold on, we went from...
No. You'll get it. You'll get it in just a second.
Okay.
I have talked to you about this before. So it's funny. The guy who is considered the godfather of anime, who created Astro Boy, his influence came from the idea that he really liked Scrooge McDuck. Scrooge McDuck, as we all know, looks a lot like Mickey Mouse characters, Daffy Duck, with the big eyes.
Yeah.
So, big eyes. Where do you think the anime big eyes come from? Scrooge fucking McDuck. So, whenever you're fapping to hentai stuff, just remember,
Scrooge.
Think about Scrooge McDuck.
I already do.
Oh, no. Oh, no. So that's what I'm saying is that half the anime big eye culture that you see everywhere here actually comes from early 50s westernized cartoons.
Huh. That's very interesting. Yep. That's it.
Yep, that's very interesting.
I mean, I don't know really what else there is. It's just a nice little head nod. Like,
I mean, yeah, like for sure.
Cool.
Like definitely fucking weird though when you think about it. Anyway, going back to manga, Astro Boy was gained popularity. Somehow Astro Boy became popular here. I'm assuming that it has to do with, I don't really talk about it why that is. I'm assuming during the time it was the 60s/70s and we were really into sci-fi stuff. Astro Boy was like the epitome of that for cartoon animation.
Yeah.
And that allows us to want to get into it and read it. Once again, that's where it comes from, like, oh, does it need an anime adaptation for it to hit the West? And in this situation, yes, it did.
Yeah.
I will say that for most things, yes. To come to my early thesis, I do believe that stuff needs an anime adaptation for Westerners to get involved in it.
Dang, I'm afraid I have to agree because I was hoping that maybe we would have like conflicting opinions on this, so we could hash it out. But nah, dog, it needs anime to come to the
No,
West. Yeah, it needs the anime.
I'll get more into why my statement is the way it is, but let's get back into history. Essentially, manga artists at this time had a really hard time selling down due to them being considered second-rate comics and didn't pay enough for it. There was a cool part where this was I don't remember the name of this person. These are very vague, just letting you know that. I have a very brief note packet of what I'm doing. But essentially, at some point in time, there was a journalist that was in Japan, and he happened to see something that was anime related that was from a manga. He wrote an entire book review on it, and that eventually led to people starting to eventually kind of draw the attraction to manga. And it's strange though, all this attraction, and I'm getting a little bit forward here, but the first manga that was ever produced in English wasn't even until 1987.
Oh my god.
Yes. I mean, technically you have stuff like, so I'll get into this, that's going on. Like, for the most part, it was still anime. So, in 1974, stuff in Japan got a bit more popular here just due to the fact that in 1974, for some reason, Americans had a real hard-on for samurai stuff. And that's what created a bunch of samurai ninja, old samurai flicks, essentially.
Yeah.
And that was all inspired by Japanese stuff, and people had gotten into like the idea of what manga had looked like and what anime was like.
So basically, like early weebs.
Yeah.
The development of early weeb culture in the United States. Yeah,
definitely. In 1979, do you know who Monkey Punch is?
That sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
Monkey
sounds like a sex move.
Monkey Punch is an author, actually.
Okay.
Monkey Punch is.
I think mine is more fun.
I don't really know anything about this myself. I've never really been into Lupin the Third, but Monkey Punch is the creator of Lupin the Third.
Okay, I've seen a bunch of like stuff for that, like a bunch of artwork, but I've never watched it or read into it or anything.
Remember one time we watched a fight scene sequence stuff, and
that guy had his arm sliced off like a slice of meat.
That was Lupin.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, Lupin's good, and Lupin came out in the 70s originally, and but Monkey Punch, the writer of Lupin, he actually he was friends with people in America that he was invited to what would be the first Comic-Con, essentially. There he met a bunch of artists and whatnot and got a bunch of connections, and that made him eventually able to produce the Lupin manga in America. And the Lupin manga in America and like all these artists and how anime was kicked off is kind of how that came to be. It's weird to think because I've never really been into Lupin stuff, but it's weird to think that Lupin kind of bridged the gap between Japan and America.
Yeah, it's neat.
So like that's kind of how essentially they invited him to Comic-Con. He made a bunch of friends, and here we are. That's not the whole truth to everything, but that's a big factor into it. Around the time of 1980 is when when the gates of manga to the West finally start opening up. It's always have to do with, it's never having to do with like America's like, oh, like, you know, we talk about how like certain anime is popular here and there. It's weird.
Yeah.
That is entirely influenced by just what America is into at the time. Like in 1984, this is part of the history. Westerners obsess over mecha anime. Not even mecha anime, just mechas in general. They start obsessing over like Transformers was a big thing at the time, and that eventually led us to where we're going to there. It's kind of weird because like stuff like there's a like Robot Tech or something like that. It's an anime from like 1990. That was like one of the things that like kind of like made anime more big and not manga. It was like, oh, like this is what anime get, and then you get stuff in the early 2000s like Neon Genesis, which started to kind of rise a thing, and then you get stuff like Code Geass, once again all mecha.
Yeah,
everything came from Gundam is so popular.
You can definitely tell that the there's definite trends in the earlier animes that were popular in the United States, like the prevalency of genres and like the types of shows that are being produced are very typical. Like you can easily place them into their categories, but now as we get more into, I mean, maybe it's just because I personally have become more exposed to anime in general, but I feel like there's a wider variety of anime that people watch more commonly over here.
Oh, for sure. West. I mean, anime has evolved so far as opposed to what it is now.
I think more people also are willing to see it as not like it's just another type of show. Like it's anime is not a genre, and I think more people are starting to come around to that.
Well, I mean, not really. Not in my opinion. I still think anime is considered taboo here, and
I mean it is, but
I've got more to go into. But yes,
any type of transition like that is going to be slow, I mean, our country hasn't exactly had a history of being super like open to the things from other cultures.
Oh,
Or
really?
I mean, maybe we have entirely.
I didn't know that.
We kind of do both things.
We kind of suck.
Garbage. Anyway, continue with your history
Yeah,
about real culture.
history about real culture. Anyway,
Trash.
so after we had our whole mech-up session, this kind of led to more anime, manga kind of not really being provided. 1987 was the first time a manga was ever produced English on a large scale. This was done by Viz Comics at the time, which turned to Viz Media / Shonen Jump.
Mm.
Well, not really Shonen Jump, Americanized Shonen Jump. At the time, this is around the time when like Viz started adapting stuff. Eventually, by the 80s, early 90s, more anime / manga companies in America started popping up, and Viz starts putting out straight to DVD anime, which eventually leads to the rise of anime in Western culture. This is where like it's kind of weird to think about the early 2000s seeing the Viz logo everywhere, because that was a big thing for Naruto.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think that they came from an early manga company to now the big massive Western idea that comes from Shonen Jump, like Viz is Naruto, Viz is Bleach, Viz is Dragon Ball Z,
Viz is everything.
Viz is most things you want.
You are part of Viz.
Oh God, no, I do not want to be a part of that.
I mean, that makes sense though. If they were one of like the earlier people to establish presence in the West, then it makes sense that they would grow more rapidly in this area. Like, I mean, like we were just saying, Americans are more comfortable with things they're familiar with. So the longer you have a presence here, the more popular you can make your items over here. Cool. Items being like shows. Are shows items?
Nah, not really. So, where I'm getting into the idea of the end of this conversation of kind of where my opinion stands after hearing this history is that, from what I've come to gather, is that yes, you do need an anime for it to be westernized in Japan. Even myself, who I've watched a ton of anime at this point in time, I looked at the amount of stuff that I'd ever just read and not watched, and there are only 5 things that I've ever read that were purely manga that I didn't watch from. I broke it down into something that I had either watched from a series in general that was there, or I took it away from stuff that was like, yes, I've watched 5 series. I've also started reading a lot of stuff that eventually just became an anime. So it's like that stuff didn't count. Like, yeah. So it's like technically eventually it did become an anime that I did watch.
Yeah, but that's not why you picked it up.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I guess it kind of goes through it, but essentially how it goes is like I think some people need visual media. I think it's the main reason here about manga being harder here is because manga has to be first of all, we're English. We speak English. We have to get that sense of like, first of all, there has to be a company that sprouts up that is actually translating manga. And nowadays there are more of that. Up until 1987, there weren't really any of that. Viz was the first one. And now we have this time period where it's like, yes, I could read manga in America and wait for stuff to be translated or watch stuff fan translated, which I do. But it's also like, do I really want to wait and be behind constantly on waiting for an English volume to come out? Attack on Titan is a great example of this because I really wanted to collect all of them at one point in time. And as far as I would go, I realized that the manga was very behind in English where it was in like the fan subs online.
Yeah. It's interesting how that factor too has almost been exacerbated more in the age that we're living in, where you need to actively try to avoid like spoilers for things that you're interested in. Whereas, when anime was first making an appearance over in the West, there wasn't being behind and stuff would have not been as big of a deal as it is now. So it's, even though we've become more open to it, it's like there's still drawbacks to reading the manga, I guess is my point. I don't know.
It's also weird. So there's a couple examples I have here. It's so takes a drink.
Yeah, that'll help me think. So
for my opinion, this is kind of the thing I've come to terms with research is so in Japan, so here obviously there's a ton of anime that becomes more westernized. Obviously, you can look around my room about things that have been westernized. If you go to Japan and ask people about this stuff, they probably don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That is mainly due to the fact that most times in Japan, the difference between us and America is that
Between us and America.
I mean, between us and Japan is that I'm not American. Fuck you. I want to go to Japan.
Nani?
Nani? No,
We're
please.
Japanese. all
I'm
of a
not
sudden.
doing. I'm not doing this now. So, in Japan, manga, comics, you know, the amount of newspaper and media that you read a lot in Japan is more so there. So, like in Japan, for example, instead of us waiting for anime to come up here, like all the people that you talk to who are anime nerds that never read manga, that you will say like, oh, it's really cool, you should get into the manga series, and they never do because they're waiting for stuff to be animated.
Well, to be fair, I'm probably one of those
you
people,
are
yeah.
you are one of those people. Attack on Titan being your prime example, which I'll get into in just a second. So in Japan, instead of watching a lot of things, Japan reads a lot more things. It's very like manga is everywhere. You go to any type of gas station, any little kiosk, an airport, anything, there is a manga volume that you probably need there.
One that I need.
Well, one that you're probably reading.
How many
that you
do
can
I
sell.
need? Tell me which ones to buy.
Stop it. Anyway, also manga is more publicized there. So if you go there, like anytime you're reading anything at all, and a new volume comes out, there is an ad for it somewhere that you'll find that is very big and very big lights that'll say like, oh, this is the new volume for this. People go crazy. People who are not even really into anime read a lot of manga there. And just because manga is their form of consumption of media, they read a lot more than they watch. And most people find anime in Japan to be a bit ruined just because whenever things get animated, they lose that magic of it being the way they read it, and that's how it goes. Like how you read a book to a movie.
That's an interesting comparison because, I mean, in my mind, it's always, again, I can really only speak with my experience with Attack on Titan, but it's very, watching everything that I've read coming out now and being animated, I'm actually very much enjoying that, like seeing things that I've already read, like going back and experiencing that again, but in a slightly different way and them adding more to it. I don't know, that's the way I view it. But I think it's interesting that, one of my points about why I think manga needs to be adapted into anime before it makes it over here is that, we're all about, like, just paper books are on the decline, like comics are on the decline. It's all about
Movies,
stuff that you can
video
stream.
games.
Yeah, exactly.
My thing here mainly is that their obviously media is a bit more taken in. Manga is a big part of their culture. I think it's more in the idea of what I feel when it comes to watching something that I've already read is I judge it the entire time. That's kind of how it goes. I read something and I have seen it been taken to the big screen, and there are certain things about it that are either going to thrill me or possibly piss me off. And I think most things that I've watched I've either picked up reading, and I think that's part of it is just mainly due to the fact that I want to see more of the plot progress, and this is the way to do it. Here's a good example of something. So say someone's cosplaying, okay? So you walk up to them and you ask them, what are you cosplaying as? They'll probably be like, oh, it's from this anime or whatever. When the fuck would anybody say, oh, it's from this manga?
I don't know.
Probably not, because
Probably if they've read the manga, which they haven't.
Would you say anime over manga every time, though? When you think about the original source material, though, the manga is the original.
Well, you got me there.
Yeah,
I got nothing.
That's what I'm saying here, is that like when it comes to terms of like in America, that's another thing about America when it comes to manga, is that so for manga here, it's different than in Japan because Japan can just release it and obviously it's already in Japanese. Here we have to get a month-long sign of somebody has to translate it from here to there. And that's where it's like we wait for anime because anime is easily dubbable. Obviously, it takes a lot more to completely transcribe a book and publish it as opposed to making an anime slapping subtitles on. That's where you get fan subs and whatnot. And I think in Japan it's just a bit more accessible to get a manga rather than to wait. And I know that also there they have to wait for an anime adaptation when they can just read it. And that's the difference between us, is that we get more things that are media thrown at us that are easier for us, and rather than waiting for a manga, possibly paying $15, even though it's $6.45 in Japan.
Yeah, yeah, it's just easier to consume the content put out by your own culture, and not just because of the technical and logistical aspects like you laid out, but also just because of cultural reasons. I mean, people still think anime is like weird as hell just because of the cultural differences, like they don't quite understand maybe why certain things are funny, or like the culture behind. I don't know, because I don't know anything really about Japanese culture. I just watch a lot of anime.
So then you kind of also know a lot about Japanese culture.
True, but
Like, you know more than the average person.
I guess so. But I wouldn't say that a Japanese person who's watched all the Marvel movies knows about American culture.
I would say that watching a ton of American movies would eventually like lead you to what the American culture is like, though. Wouldn't you say?
True, but also a lot of Well, I was gonna say, but also a lot of the shows I watch take place in other worlds that aren't
Yeah.
Japan. But then again, America also has its fair share of fiction. So
For sure. Like, I mean, that's when it comes to, I was going to compare myself to this earlier, but like, once again, with like comics, like superhero comics.
yeah,
Obviously that's the cool part about mangas, because when you think of Stan Lee going to Japan, that being a big influence on manga, that's crazy to think that somebody who I read all the time was a big influence on the things that I currently still read. And it's baffling for me, because I mean, I'm going to go on a little rant here of why I like Stan Lee. I'm not going to do that, actually, but
okay.
mainly just because it's just like it's cool to see that a person that I read comic book wise all the time was a big influence on the things that I also like outside of comic books, like manga. And like even though it's weird to think about it, though, because he's dead now, and it's weird to think about, even in death, I've learned all these things about him that are so cool, and it makes me upset that he's dead. And I'm just like, damn, like you did this, you influenced manga culture, you influenced comic book culture, and like you've influenced this movie culture that's now a part of it. And it's baffling to me, like the amount of stuff that people go through to get this kind of thing going. And I mean, that's where I kind of lie on this. But anyway, I was going into something that I've completely forgotten about.
Sounds like my daily life.
I just love Stan Lee, essentially, and to hear this information about him made me appreciate him even more. And the thing about comics, oh yeah, this is where I was going. Finally back on it. So like, once again, in Japan, obviously a volume release, it'll be announced, and you have every, I'm assuming it's more like Comic Book Tuesday, where you go and you pick out a volume because it comes out every Tuesday, or something like that. Like, you know how people, there's also like Shonen Jump magazine, where it's like a big magazine just full of manga. And I think that's kind of how it is. Like, they're like here, like at one point in time, I was keeping up with comics every week. I could go just every week and get a little comic and read it, and I'd be good. I think that's how it is there, as opposed to here, where it's like, oh yeah, I can't just go get a little manga piece and call it a day, because it takes a month to translate.
Yeah, that's actually something that I wanted to touch on. Do you think that consumption of manga is comparable to consumption of comic books?
I think they're
over here,
one and the same.
You think?
Yeah.
Because I find that.
Well, no, a bit more popularity. It depends on what you're doing. I think nowadays, currently with Marvel and how Marvel has, like, the MCU has become such a big success.
Yeah.
I think nowadays people are reading more Marvel comics than they ever have. And
well, that's what I wanted to touch on, is that I don't think that comics over here are more popular than like the movie adaptations that they receive. And if anything, more people, I think, get into comics after watching like the Marvel and DC films.
Back in the anime and manga again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think in general, people, at least in the West, like to see things
just visual.
Like, yeah. I mean, I would still say that a comic is visual, but I know what you're trying to say.
A more motion detective, cohesive
Yeah.
story. I don't know. It's also just weird because, like, I know that comic books are very popular here.
I think Americans just hate reading.
Oh man, you're so right.
That's why they hate like subs over dubs because they're like, I don't want to read and watch.
I think that's also a cultural difference. Also, is that in Japan you have, I feel like you have so many opportunities in your society, especially if you're like a student to read or go anywhere. Like,
Hmm.
say you're just on like a train or something, and you just pull out a manga, and like there in Japan, like a manga is a bit more compacted and like pocket sized, as opposed to here. And like same for like a book, you can just easily just pull out a book or whatever and just start reading it. They consume a lot more literature in Japan, and I think that people in here don't consume enough literature. And that's the basis here, is that people don't want to fucking read, and they want to see some visual thing because they can't hold their attention for that long.
Yeah, I hate reading.
I like reading.
I never read.
I like
hate
reading
books.
a lot. I'm trying to teach English.
I'm gonna
so
burn
yes.
down every library.
Please don't. Please
Every
respect
single
books.
one.
Books teach you knowledge. We're good things here.
Burn the books.
Please don't. Anyway, what I'm getting at here in the end of all of this is that yes, with the attention span of Americans and the fact that they can't even get their own goddamn comic books that are already English translated, the fact that they have to watch a movie still in the end of all of it proves that no, they're not going to pick up a manga. The only manga I can think about in America that people really pick up that is not anywhere translated to any type of anime or a visual thing is Oyasumi Pun Pun. And that's the one I told you about with the weird creature.
Yeah,
thing.
you just showed me some stuff from that. It seems very interesting.
It's funny because like besides the fact of all the research I did, everybody was like, by the way, like Oyasumi Pun Pun does not count in this situation because Oyasumi Pun Pun was very, very westernized. That's one of the only things that I can say that a lot of people I've talked to have read and not done anything.
I've never heard anything about it until you introduced me to it.
I've been hearing about it for years, and it wasn't until recently that I finally started reading it. But yeah, I heard about it up until the point where it ended.
Seems very weird. I'd rather watch my degenerate trash.
I will say that Oyasumi Pun Pun with the way I also prefer manga. I'm a manga person in all this. I read so much manga. Everything that I can possibly. Once again, though, when it came down to it, there were only 5 series that I did pick up that were not originally an anime or became an anime. That's where it's kind of weird. Where it's like I really like manga, but most of the time when I do read manga, I'm reading it because I watched the anime, and now I want to find out what's going on.
You gotta know
any further. I can't wait 2 years for another season.
Yeah, anime is pretty much just advertisement for manga. They give you 13 episodes, leave you on a cliffhanger, and you gotta know what happens.
And that's the thing about it. Once again, is that like, would a manga ever be popular anywhere else? Like, when would you ever look at a manga and be like, yes, I'm gonna pick that up?
Right.
Unless you thought it was a really cohesive story. Like, I mean, that's the part of like why Oyasumi Pun Pun is so cool, because people find the manga art and the style of it and everything to be so good, and I couldn't imagine Oyasumi Pun Pun to be in an anime. I almost feel like it would lose its magic if it was in an anime. I mean, it would depend on also the animator and what they did.
Yeah, but, definitely. It all depends on how they adapt it.
Yes. Also, I looked at one point in time, someone pulled up sales. These are very rough estimates, but at one point in time, I saw essentially, this is kind of to give you guys a good thing for in America. There's roughly about $26 billion worth of literature sold. 1 billion of that happens to be comics, manga, all that included. In Japan, I know that the population is a lot lower, and this is kind of what they came out to be, but so in Japan, the amount of sales that are going to, it's roughly about, so if we're comparing it to the 36 billion that is there, it's more like 20 billion there. Like, pretty much the majority of the sales that goes there are from manga or anime, because that's how it goes. Their culture consumes it a lot more than we would. So also it's weird there because, like, I know that watching anime and stuff still makes you a nerd there. And I think reading is a bit more of like a, oh yeah, everybody reads One Piece. Because, like, that's One Piece. Also, it's weird to think about, like, stuff here that is popular from anime adaptations and not popular there, once again, because people don't read it. It's weird to think about stuff like Steins Gate, where Steins Gate is really popular here, not really popular there, because Steins Gate is a visual novel, not a manga. So you have to buy the game in order to play it, instead of it being like, I can buy a volume and read it.
I'm trying to think how many shows, like, what do you think the percentage is of anime that are created from manga versus anime that are from like visual novels or other games, and
Or
then
light
anime.
novels.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think that? How did you pull any statistics on how those divide up?
I
Like,
know that most things either come from I mean, a, a visual novel is not as common. The main two things that things come from is either a manga or a light novel. Light novels originally come. This is how most things go a lot of the time, where they'll make a light novel of something, they turn the light novel into a manga, then the manga becomes an anime, and
the life cycle of an anime.
yeah, pretty much. Like think about it, like the way Sword Art is a very good example of this. Sword Art's one of the first branches in the light novel community. Boogie Pop was the first light novel.
Oh shit!
Boogie Pop
You've
is
definitely told me that before, and I totally
Yep.
forgot until you just said it again.
Sword Art was the one that kind of solidified things as being a light novel series. Sword Art was originally a light novel series from 2001. And it's weird to think that originally it came in a light novel series. It adapted into a manga, which eventually led to an anime. And it's weird to think that that was in 2001.
And now it's still going.
It's also weird to think about the timeline of Sword Art because it starts out in like 2024, and I'm sure at 2001 that was a lot of time, but then it came out in 2012, and I'm like, oh, that's 10 years into the future. There's no way this is gonna happen. And
Not quite there yet.
and then the guy who wrote Sword Art was like, all right, well, fuck this whole project. I'm gonna start something called Sword Art Progressive, where I just redo everything I just wrote. That's the thing about it. It's just like it's weird that that manga and adaptions go through all these steps to get there. And I guess that works the same in here, where things become a book, then possibly a comic, then possibly a movie.
Oh yeah, I mean we've seen a plethora of book to movie adaptations.
I think either way in the end of this conversation is that I think definitely here in the Western culture, I think you need some type of visual outlet for it. In Japan, not so much. I think Japan focuses more on literature. Here, we're dumb fuckers and need some type of visual representation.
I gotta see the pictures.
Yeah, I gotta say. I mean, there is pictures.
I want moving pictures.
I want moving pictures. Then that's where moving pictures come in. And then you get stuff that, I mean, it's also like that's why things are more popular here because we were just in a phase at the time, which is why mecha popularity spiked here. Because we were just like, oh, cool, robots, let's do it. And that probably has something to do with Western culture and what was going on at the time in Western culture. But
robots, we like robots.
Once again, I was talking about like Transformers earlier and like how in 1984 it was around the time when like mecha stuff started popping up more.
Now I'm just picturing America and Japan as children. Like, let's both play with robots together. Here,
Let's both play with robots.
This robot is weird. It has a big-titted girl inside of it.
And then
that's
Wes
fine.
is like, yes, please. Okay, moving on. So moving on to, this is a very, very off-topic conversation that I wanted to have with Scott at some point in time because I was really angry today about something. So let me just explain this whole situation first. So earlier today, I was outside. It was very cloudy, so I thought, hey, I'm going to wear a cardigan. You know, I'm going to dress more like, I don't know, like fallish kind of early spring weather.
Dress a little warmer. Maybe breakout.
Yeah, and like it wasn't too bad. It was kind of hot, and I was just like, ugh, I'm kind of hot. This kind of sucks. I wish I could change. And then I was thinking, I was thinking about Naruto specifically, and how Sasuke can wear shorts and a short sleeve shirt. Yet Naruto wears a full-on fucking tracksuit that has fur in it. How the fuck do these two people in the summer somehow feel the same?
While running and jumping through treetops and doing lots of physical activity.
Don't get me wrong, like anime fashion is so cool, but I've always wondered, like Isaiah wears a coat every single day of the year in Durara. How does he wear that fur coat every single day of the year? He's got to be hot eventually.
Isaiah is always hot.
There's no physics to temperature in anime. Well, there are sometimes, depending on if they're trying to establish
like
that.
if they go to somewhere where they actually have to draw snow, then they'll draw them as being like all bundled up.
It's time for coats.
But if as long as they don't, you can't visually see that the temperature is different. They just draw however they want. So Shane, you posed this question to me just a few minutes ago, and I've been trying to come up with an answer for you, and I think I've found it.
Okay.
So swans, when they
what?
Or snow geese. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, cool. We're getting into bird topics here.
It's relevant, I promise.
Okay, cool.
I know a lot about birds and anime.
I think they all know.
So, yeah, dude, I know my ABCs: anime, birds, cats. That's what I know. So
ABCs. Okay, continue.
so anyway, snow geese will stand on top of frozen lakes, and to prevent their feet, which are the only like exposed skin on their body, from getting frostbite, they circulate more blood through their legs, and that keeps their feet from getting frostbite. So pretty much what I'm explaining here is that anime characters have a different circulatory system than humans.
Please stop.
In which they transfer
stop.
their body.
It's not relevant.
So they exert more heat out of their hands and anywhere not covered by an orange jumpsuit.
All right, well, everybody, you heard it here.
So if you were to look at an anime character with a thermal camera, you'd actually see their hands and their feet and face glow much hotter than the tracksuited body.
So, God damn it. Why did I expect you to say anything serious? You know, you were going somewhere that I thought was serious because it had something to do with your knowledge.
Okay. Well, then how do you propose that they stay in the same
I think it's
place?
just anime logic, and that's how it goes.
Okay, well,
I don't think you need to add logic of, oh, they have a different circulatory system than other things.
but if you're asking me the question, how can they do that? You can't then turn around and be like, oh, well, it's just anime.
Well, I mean, that is the topic here. I'm just trying to bring up how ridiculous it is because I've never really thought about it until today.
Oh, I think about it on the daily.
Do you really
kidding
think
me?
about
Yeah.
this on the daily?
I think about how, like, I appreciate any shows that will draw characters in a different outfit, if not necessarily every time, but at least like change up their clothes once a season, just because at some point those clothes are going to get so dirty. Like, even if you wash them every day after you wear them, they're going to get so tattered and destroyed.
I remember there's a Naruto specific part that's scene that I remember. This is the first time that like blew my mind of why Naruto wears the same thing every day. But I remember there's a part where you're inside of his house and he's going through his clothing, and literally every single thing that's on the rack is the same exact fucking jumpsuit. And it's like, do you think you'd want a little bit of variation?
Yeah, could I please get 7 of this one tracksuit?
I'm also upset because there's a part where they go to... There are 2 different movies from the original Naruto series. One where they go to a place that's a bit hot and everybody in the series is wearing shorts, including Naruto.
That's got to be bizarre.
Then they went to a place where everything was warm and they're all wearing like coats and shit like that. Sasuke during all of this was still wearing shorts though. Even though they were in like the middle of the goddamn winter and all he had was one cloak to make it look like he was a bit warmer. And I'm just like, I mean, I get that it's animation and obviously nothing matters in temperature wise in animation, but it's also like, shouldn't you draw them properly?
I just thought of something else too. They never dress appropriate for the weather, but if it rains or gets cold even a little bit, they're like, "Oh, we're going to get sick."
So here's the thing that I was going to get into eventually was I guess it varies per things that are more Japanese culture related.
Yeah.
So like anything that's like a slice of life anime will go more into the fact that they have to wear clothes. But like in Japan, so you'll have a winter outfit that's for school, and then you have a summer outfit.
Mm-hmm.
The summer outfit just literally makes it so that you have short sleeve shirt.
Yeah, I mean the school uniform is pretty much the classic out to like why there's always the same clothes.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't want to draw this, so here's school uniforms.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's like still in certain times I'm just like, huh, wouldn't you be really fucking hot or cold because you can't wear a jacket?
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. I remember one time I was playing Persona and I remember there's a day where you finally switch back to your winter uniform and it's also still like, it's still like October, like late August, and you're switching to your winter uniform already. And I remember thinking like, it would still probably be kind of hot there for you to be wearing that thick jacket with your turtleneck on underneath.
Is that the uniform that has the plaid pants, or do they always have the plaid pants?
They always have the plaid pants.
Oh, good. I love those pants.
The winter uniform is definitely better than the summer uniform because the summer uniform just becomes the plaid pants but with a white shirt.
Oh.
Yeah. I like the turtleneck and I like the coat.
Yeah, the coat's very stylish.
Coat makes it better. Anyway, clothes are stupid. What's the point in anime of trying to make things, I guess, there's also, like, I'm thinking about Tokyo Ghoul right now. And there's a part where Kaneki is outside. Well, it is snowing and has short sleeves and a shirt on and is walking barefoot. I know that was just to make the scene look cooler, but it's also like, hey, man, you're probably cold as fuck.
Can we also talk about how, why can't women wear armor? like full armor? Why do they need?
Why do women have to
Why do
wear
they
shorter
need-
clothing?
Yeah, why do they need like metal bikini?
I understand that it's for the purpose of, oh, everyone's horny and is trying to make
Yeah.
this character look more sexy, but it's also like, rationally, you should probably put this girl in a bit more clothing because that makes sense.
or also just give the guys less clothing.
I believe in equality.
Yeah, gender equality.
I
That's
believe
what
in
we need.
equality. Thank you, Cosima, for giving me this.
Truly
equality.
teaching us lessons in.
But everybody should either be in the same clothing or no clothing. It's either you're all naked or you're not naked.
Well, I guess hold on.
No, please don't get naked. Please put on your headphones.
Okay.
It is just me and you. That'd be weird.
What do you mean? We do it all the time.
We do not. These are false
You
statements.
fucking liar.
Jesus Christ. Okay. I get naked with Scott sometimes. You heard it here, folks.
Breaking news.
You heard it here, folks. You get naked now. I hope no one in this house hears me talking about the fact that I get naked with Scott. And anyway, moving on to...
They've heard weirder.
I guess they have. Anyway, moving on to things. I'm just a bit angry about clothing, and that was what I was talking about. Moving on to kind of... So we haven't talked about this at all. I told you earlier that we're trying to get away from the idea of talking about stuff that we're currently watching. I do want to kind of still update you guys on what we're currently watching because that is a very important thing in anime, what's currently going on in the current seasons. This season we are picking up a good amount. Scott finally got caught up to most things today.
I watched so much. I probably went from 10 o'clock until probably about 6 watching shows, and then I took a nap and then woke up at about 8 and watched more until I came over here at 10.
Scott was also behind by like
I probably watched a full season's worth of show episodes, if not more.
So obviously we had everything that we were watching last season. He stopped at like the last like episode or two from last season and had to finish that up and then start the new season. And this new season I happened to pick up a ton of shit, so Scott was overwhelmed.
Yeah, it was a lot. I've just been in this like, I don't know, haven't been watching as much anime recently.
I've heard from you a lot.
Guys, I need help.
Yeah, it's
Help
Scott's
me.
not been
Yeah,
watching a bunch of stuff.
I need to be rehabilitated.
I've been
into
watching
that
a
Weeb
lot
life.
more this season so far. Plus, for those who don't know, I haven't really talked into this, but on Saturday this weekend, I'm also going to a convention. So I'm trying to watch a lot of things to possibly see more stuff this season or last season. I don't know how much merch is going to be there, but I'm there to buy. I'm there to buy a lot of stuff.
Spend all that money you didn't get to spend at Comic-Con.
Oh, you're right. I didn't get to spend any of the money at Comic-Con.
Oh,
so
wait,
it's
but
good.
you bought figures after Comic-Con.
Yeah, I know, but it
So
wasn't...
you did still spend the Comic-Con money.
It wasn't as good, though.
Wasn't enough.
No, it wasn't the
So-
right con feeling, and that's the thing about it.
We should talk about figures and merch next time.
That's a good idea. Mainly because I own a lot of figures and merch.
Oh yeah, and
And the-
I'm trying to acquire more.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that if anybody ever were to go in my room, they would be very overwhelmed.
As we look around.
Yeah. Also, somebody was telling me the other day, they were like, because someone did come to my room recently and they were very overwhelmed and they were saying like, Shane, with the way you dress and the way you talk, I would, if you never mentioned anime to me, I would never know that you're an anime nerd. And when I walked into your room, like I was expecting like a little bit of stuff, but like I wasn't expecting your entire room to be an otaku shelter.
Oh no, we're all around you.
Like it is nerdy in here, but like it's also like, I mean, I guess if you know my personality, you realize that yes, I'm a big fucking nerd.
Is your friend a weeb? You may never know.
You'll never know until you go into his room and
Look
find
out.
all of his stuff.
Look out for these signs. Are they consistently saying Japanese phrases?
Watashi.
Do they say nani?
Nani? Okay, moving on though. So we're gonna talk about kind of what we're watching. That'll be kind of it. Kind of a brief topic of rundown of here's everything that's that. So to start out from last season, the only thing that is still airing from last season is Shield Hero. Scott is not currently caught up with Shield Hero. I personally have enjoyed Shield Hero so far. I mean, Shield Hero's kind of had its up and downs.
Yeah, it looks like I kind of tuned out right when shit picked back up. So
Like
I'm like,
shit has picked back up. Shit's not still like the best it could be. Nothing will ever compare to first tier, like the first like few episodes of Shield Hero to tie you into it, but it's definitely still good. So Shield Hero from last season, obviously Attack on Titan, we're going to be watching. It's a big thing. We're involved here. We read the manga. That's the only thing that me and Scott are reading that are common ground, and that is good to see animated.
yeah, I like my big boys.
Yeah, for sure. I like my big boys. Flexes. Anyway, so that's Bungo Stray Dogs. Bungo Stray Dogs is a favorite of mine. I still read the manga. Very influenced by it. Good manga series for me. I couldn't. Yeah, do you like Bungo?
I like it. My position falls like just barely over the line of neutral, I think, but it's enjoyable to me. I like seeing all of the powers that they come up with.
I like the idea of it being based on literature and writing, and
Yeah.
the fact that everybody is named off of somebody who is a writer that exists.
Yeah, it's a very neat element to it, and like how their power is connected to like whatever story that person is most known for writing.
The powers are definitely very creative in that sense. Definitely a good show to watch. If you have not watched anything of Bungo Stray Dogs, I would say yes, watch Bungo Stray Dogs. Very, very, very good anime. Moving on. So Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer, in my opinion, is very good so far. That's probably one of the more top tier anime I've seen this season so far, and
Yeah, Demon Slayer looks good. Lots of good action. I like the animation in it. They do this thing like when they're animating like the waves that come off of his sword, like that stuff looks really cool.
yes, super super cool.
I know that sounds wild to anyone who hasn't seen that show.
Oh
but
no,
like,
you'll get it
watch.
eventually. That's like how his thing is his water breathing or whatever the hell he's calling it.
Which has nothing to do with breathing underwater.
No, it does not.
At least as far as we know. Maybe it does get. We haven't seen him underwater.
We haven't seen a lot yet. So,
Verdict is still out on that one.
We don't know. Either way, good anime. So far has been good animated. Top the series. Next would be Fruits Basket. Obviously the remake and good.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch the original, I think, like you were recommending, but I probably won't do it the way you did, like watching episode 1 of the remake and then watching one of the original. I'll probably go back and watch it, like, I'll probably binge the original.
Yeah, it's fine. I've been doing a comparison, kind of watching each episode and comparing scenes and seeing how close it is, and so far it's been pretty cool to see how things differentiate. I also originally did watch Fruits Baskets back in the day. It's been a very long time, so it's nice to see things kind of go back to where they were.
I will say I think I'm gonna have to watch, like, after watching 4 straight episodes of Fruits Basket today. I don't think I'm gonna be able to watch it multiple episodes in a row. I think I need like a break in between.
Yeah, we
each
talked
one.
about this. Yeah, you need a little break. I mean, now you get that break because you've caught up.
Yeah. So
Two
should be a lot better. Not as I don't want to use the word preachy because that's not quite right, but just a lot of waxing poetic that goes on a little long for my personal taste.
I gotcha.
But again, after watching 4 episodes, one after the other, like everything that's been out for the show, I watch all in one go. So
yeah. So what do you expect in that sense?
Yeah. After the break, I think it'll be fine.
Cool. The two things that Scott have not really watched yet. I'm watching them. He'll watch them eventually. He just didn't get around to them today because there was so much goddamn anime. But I'm watching Wise Man's Grandchild, which is that the anime I was telling you about the character who does magic, who's it's also isekai, who is so OP he doesn't even realize he's OP. And then Midnight Occultic Civil Servants, and that's the one about the people going out and preventing yokai stuff from happening, and essentially being yokai police officers, and I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it's something that's right on my alley, but boy, they gotta be careful to not make it boring.
You are right. So far, the animation is not really top tier, but I like the anime in general. The story so far is good. Moving on, Ao-chan Can't Study.
Oh God.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty much hilarious.
The next two things I'm going to talk about are going kind of hand in hand. That's good. So Ao-chan is one thing that we're walking.
And then
why the hell are you here, teacher?
Which that title makes sense now.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's weird because Ao-chan's about the girl who has her father who's a hentai novelist, and her naming being named after the AO face, and like how everything in her life is essentially back to
Yeah,
sexualization.
like that's pretty much the only thing that she can, like the only way that she can frame like things that people say to her is through a sexual lens.
Yeah, and then you get into why are you here, teacher, which is essentially just borderline hentai that's on Crunchyroll, that we're watching it on at least. It's so weird to think about because it's blurred or like censored essentially. It's so weird. I remember picking up the first time and I'm thinking, oh, this is ecchi, like for sure, like it's fine. I didn't expect there to be scenes where they had to legit cut the entire part out of it to not be able to see it because it is pure hentai. That's
Is it
weird.
just are they just airing a hentai?
Like
Because
kind
listen,
of like from what I've seen, yeah, it's kind of how it goes.
if I can start getting my hentai off Crunchyroll, then I'm gonna be saving a good amount of money every month.
What do you pay for? Oh God. Okay, well, moving on to our last two. First would be Isekai Quartet. Me and Scott have. I mean, I'm mainly watching this season because I thought it. I mean, I watched ReZero, I watched Konosuba, I watched the majority of Overlord, I watched a little bit of Tanya, and yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm mainly in it for the Konosuba shit.
Yeah, I really just want to see all the Konosuba characters be hilarious again.
It's just really it's pretty much just, oh, all these isekai shows are poured into one and they're put in a classroom and don't understand why, and it's cool to see all their interactions, and I'm excited to see where it goes with it, especially Cosmo and Subaru.
Yeah, and I'm not expecting anything too too high end from it. It's
Oh
just
no,
it's just a goofy little
like, oh cool,
short, but it's
tune into this every now and then to watch.
but it's very enjoyable to me. Although, I both love and hate like the chibi animation.
I don't mind it mainly because ReZero actually had this is the same exact animation that ReZero did a while ago. ReZero had a show that was in the middle of ReZero at the time when it was airing called ReZero Break Time, and this is the same exact animation, but it was essentially just like little 5-minute shorts that were about like, oh, this is like, oh, what if they went to this coffee shop or something like that, and so I'm kind of already in like used to what this kind of looks like and where it was going. Ooh shit. Oh God.
And like it makes sense for what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Just again, one of those things where watching a bunch of it in several episodes in a row is just a little,
Yeah.
little bone chilling.
Moving on to our final thing, and then we're gonna kind of cut it here. This is the thing that me and Scott actually, I watched the first episode with Scott together. It's a bit weird and avant-garde.
Are we talking about buttholes?
Yeah, we're talking about buttholes.
Good.
So we're talking about Sada Zanmai. Sada Zanmai. I could not tell you. Ooh, fuck! I could not tell you what Sada Zanmai is about. Besides the fact that it's something to do with cop of the creature, the weird frog being, and getting all your desires
getting all the desires out of your butthole.
The negative desires out of your butthole. You turn into a kappa. You go in there to get it, and you somehow learn more about your friends through it all.
It's a very lewd episode. Talking about
literally pulling a person out of a butthole.
Talking about getting naked and pulling desires out of your friend's butthole and learning about them.
You know, once again, throughout this whole conversation, stop it. I do not know what I would tell you about the topic of this anime. It's just goddamn bizarre.
Worth a watch though. I had fun.
Like for definitely, like the animation is cool. Everything I've been going through so far is cool. It's a very interesting time. Definitely going to keep up watching it. Either way, without all this, we're gonna update you guys. Kind of. We're not really gonna do anime book club anymore, but we're gonna do our kind of we're going to go through at the end of each episode and kind of go through with what we're watching, where we're at, kind of rough details of what's going on without giving you guys any spoilers, and that'll be kind of better for those who cannot tune in as often and continue for this. But with that, I'm excited for this season. There's a lot going on. We'll give you more detail as time goes on. We'll be back in a month. And from there, I just want to thank... who do I want to thank? I want to thank Trifect for our intro and outro music. I want to thank our producer, Mike. That's for sure. Yeah, Scott, you got something to say?
I want to thank you for editing. You good boy.
Thank you. I'm
Was
glad.
the look on my face just like,
Aw, like, thank you, Scott. Cool. Remember, you guys can follow us. I have a different Tumblr name now. Of course.
worked pretty hard to get it too.
Yeah, I did. I woke up at 3 a.m. To watch Persona stuff and got the name of the new Persona character for the Royal that is coming out, and I'm very happy.
What a get.
I am now Yoshizawa Kasumi at tumblr.com and .tumblr.com. Fuck. You can still reach us at our Gmail. Everything will be in the description. But feel free to tune in next time. Tell your friends. Word of tongue is the way we get information out.
Word of tongue, word of mouth.
Word of mouth? Is that better? Is it word of tongue or mouth?
Whatever you want. You can give me word of tongue if you want.
I don't want to. Anyway, we're gonna cut this here now. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you in a month.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye, everybody. And we are closing.
All right, let's get naked.
No, please don't get naked. I'm not getting naked with you. Bye. Okay, Scott, it's time to get naked. We're off camera.
Yeah.